Hi, and welcome to Inside Israel Teaching Fellows, Petach Tikvah. We're here with Brittany Walters, who is a current fellow, who's going to tell us a little bit about her experience so far. Brittany, can you tell us, how did you hear about Israel Teaching Fellows, and why did you decide to pursue it, and why did you choose Petach Tikvah specifically?
Okay. I would say it was a bit of a stroke of fate. I was about to be moving to New York City, actually, from Washington, D.C. And I saw kind of the back recesses of my email that I had an email from Israel Teaching Fellows, and I was looking for something. I had had a really amazing discussion with one of the girls I was working with, and she was leaving for Kenya, and I was telling her that I didn't think that I wanted to go to another office job, not for the time being, and she was like, well, I challenge you to make your life extraordinary then. And she did. And that was the most amazing thing. It stuck with me forever and it still sticks with me. And I don't know, a few days later, I saw this email and I was like, that's a way to do it. Okay, that's pretty cool. So I applied and it all happened pretty quickly. This was like June, July that this is all happening and unfolding, which was amazing. And I called my parents and I was like, pretty far into the process and let them know that I was moving to Israel. And they were like, okay, we expect this of you. So it was amazing. And I chose Petach Tikva because of a few things. I liked most notably that it was really close to Tel Aviv, which has been an amazing asset because as good as life is here, it's also really special to be close to a city as amazing as Tel Aviv. Um, and I really liked, I mean, the school where I am is amazing. I like the population. I like that there was a lot of diversity. They promised us this really like salty Israeli experience, which is very true. Um, and I thought, if I'm going to learn Hebrew and try to learn about a group of people, I want to do it in the most non-American, non-commoditized way possible. So Petach Tikva is that. If you want something really real and genuine and very Israeli, this is the place to go.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what do you mean by, what makes Petach Tikvah like that? What are the populations that live there? What are the students like that you're working with?
Of course. So Petach Tikva is the original or one of the original settlements. There's contention between Rishon and Petach Tikva, but we'll claim the first. So it's been here forever, and some of its infrastructure has been here forever. So you can see things that feel very dated and very old, and at the same time very modern. So it's very Israeli in that way. You have these like really old buildings and facades next to these very modern high rises. It's funny. And population-wise, you've got everybody. You have real Israelis. You have very Russian people. You have Ethiopians. I mean, you really have the whole gamut here. And our kids reflect that too. My school is pretty like standard Israeli, but I've like all of my roommates teach different demographics. They teach in religious schools. I teach in a secular school, but I mean, it's really everybody's represented. You've got shuls all over the place here. We live in a pretty religious part of town, so if you want to see like properly authentic Jews as well, you have them here, black hats and all. And yeah, you go to the supermarket and you speak Hebrew. You go to the shuk, you speak Hebrew. You're on the bus, you speak Hebrew. So you're living a pretty immersed life.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about what's your day-to-day work at the schools like? What kind of work are you doing with the students, and are you doing anything outside of the classroom in the community?
Yeah. So my days are from 8 till 1:30 today till 2:15 because we have English club. Um, so yeah, it kind of depends on the school, but so I'll speak from my personal experience. There's three of us at my school, and we kind of took a three-part approach. So one of us does the English club, one of us does a presentation series, and one of us does the blog. So mine is the presentation series. So we present on American holidays. Last week we talked about responsibilities. We kind of incorporate the vocab that they're learning or the season that we're in to kind of integrate vocabulary and cultural relativism basically, so that they can understand why Americans are so crazy about Valentine's Day, for example. And for the English club, our school is based on the premise of human rights and children's rights, and that's something that they really are committed to. So a lot of our English club programming is around that. So it's like making that fun and interesting and relevant to kids, but also portraying that message. So Rachel, who's another fellow, does a really great job with that. And then Holden created this kind of internet forum with a school in the States. So our kids write to them and they write back, and there's a whole dialogue about different things, being Jewish in the States, Hanukkah. I think, what was our last post about? It was a Valentine's Day post. So what that was about and how they learned about Valentine's Day from us and what Valentine's Day looks like in the States and how there's a Jewish Valentine's Day, which I don't think a lot of Jewish students in the States know about. So it's pretty cool. And then outside, we all have different volunteering. A lot of us volunteer at the Refugee Center in Tel Aviv. It's the African Refugee Development Center. It's a real it's a real issue at the moment in Israel, and something to be. It's amazing to be part of it. I also do some music research on the side too, which is pretty cool. Understanding cultural identity and identity retention through diasporic music. Some people work at. There's a center just down the street for kids in Petach Tikvah. I mean, it kind of ranges. Some people are working at Tel Aviv University and doing some archaeology stuff. I mean, just really amazing stuff. The whole world is available when you're close to Tel Aviv.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of being close to Tel Aviv, what do you do in your free time in Petach Tikvah? Do you find yourself traveling within the country a lot? And what are some of your favorite things to do outside of school?
Cool, yeah, that's very relevant. We just spent the weekend in Mitzpe Ramon, which is the big crater in the Negev desert, and it was amazing. We hiked for a few days, and it was the coolest. And yeah, our free time, if we have free time, I'm thinking like a lot of our time is like these really beautiful facilitated trips from the program too. Like that's why we got down to the south. We went to Beersheba with our group, and then we went to Mitzpe Ramon from there. So they facilitated this awesome like desert trip, and we just extended, which is a really cool option always, to extend from where they take us. But yeah, weekends, we just do anything we can. We go to Jerusalem, we go to Tel Aviv, we go to the movies, we go to exhibits, we go to the beach, go to the markets. There's a lot to do. We feel overwhelmed. I'm like speaking as a collective. Like we're talking about, we've been here 6 months now, and we're like, we only have 4 more months to do this entire country, which feels like there's an ever-growing list. So it's great.
Nice. And what about in Petach Tikvah? Do you have any favorite like hangouts, cafes? Like, what's your neighborhood like?
So where I babysit, nanny, and do all those kind of things on the other side of Petach Tikvah where my school is, and that's definitely where there's hangouts, like these beautiful parks, and like where all of our kids hang out. Basically, there's an Aroma and a McDonald's and a Chetzihina, which is the best supermarket that's ever been made, outside of Publix. People from South Florida will know what that means. Yeah, so that's kind of where our spot is, if there is any. There's also this kind of new up-and-coming spot that has like a sushi restaurant and gelato and all of these kind of things. So that's definitely where it's up-and-coming, where there's coffee shops in Petach Tikvah. Some of the girls have a spot, which is Coffee Dawn, which is where they go and they get breakfast, and they've got like a 35 shekel huge spread with coffee and stuff, and that's kind of meant to be the spot. So yeah, there are good things in Petach Tikvah, really good gems, great spice and nuts and dried fruit store as well. So if anybody needs that recommendation, there's a good one here.
Awesome. It sounds like a really interesting place.
Yeah.
Dan, just wrapping up, what are some of the types of people or traits that have helped people be really effective as teaching fellows in Petach Tikvah?
Okay, yeah. So there has to be some level of flexibility just anywhere you move in this world, but being able to speak from being here for 6 months, like you have to have a lot of flexibility and shed some of the American need for organization. And like for us, everything, and for me especially, like that's self-admitted, I have to plan like 15 days ahead for me to be even remotely comfortable with something. But here, things change last minute. People don't schedule things until like 5 minutes after the time that they said, and that's not a comment on Mossad. That's Israeli society. That's how it works here. Sometimes your bus doesn't show up, and you call your teacher teachers and you bring them like a bag of pastries because you're so worried about it, and they're like, "It wasn't your fault. Zero katastrofa. It was the bus. It's fine." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm such an American." So you have to have a certain level of flexibility, and be able to kind of move within that and adjust and be open to adjustment and acclimate because it is very different. And I don't think we know how different it is until we speak to our American friends or are put in a situation where we're back at home. I don't even know how much I've changed until I'll be back to where I can gauge that and judge that. But yeah, I would say that flexibility is probably the big guy, and a willingness to learn because there's so much to imbibe all of the time. Be it at Opon, if you want to take that challenge. Hebrew is a really tough language to learn because there isn't anything particularly familiar about the language structure. And it's amazing to learn from your kids all the time and all the people that want to invite us to their houses and to their spaces all of the time. So if you're open to it, you can learn a million things a day. It's incredible. So, yeah.
And then, last word for Petach Tikvah. Why should people consider Petach Tikvah when they're applying for teaching fellows?
Last word for Petach Tikvah. Because it's a very easy place. We have all of the amenities that you could possibly need as far as supermarkets and super farms, which is where one goes to a pharmacy. My apartment is especially beautiful. We don't have a lot of threats of any type of like civil violence or unrest because we kind of live amongst older people and religious people. And as a sect, both of them are relatively calm. And it's really nice. We're close to everything. We have shirts, we've got buses, taxis come all of the time, so you never feel like you're really in a remote place. But if you want it to be a remote place too, you can treat it as such. It offers you those opportunities too. So it's good, and our schools are beautiful. I love my school. I love my kids. It's a great place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Brittany, and good luck with the rest of your year.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity.